this thing. Let's be right out front and call it what it was. Segregation, right? It was separate and very, very, very unequal. And it was evil. Evil. It taught hate. Something unique to Wilmington is what they taught us. When we were in these segregated schools, it was Wilson and all the other schools came out. They taught us something that's really, really important and we don't realize, and it was confidence. You realize how many people came out of Williston extremely confident to go out there and compete? We had a guy over there, his name was Grady Love. Boy, he influenced so many of us on citizenship. My cousin. But he said a man's home is his castle. He said you, as black children and white, are inferior to no one. And we left our environment with those very, very strong beliefs. Another thing that was kind of unique about this community, Wilmington, when you look at other communities like Greensboro, Durham, Fayetteville, we didn't have any black colleges in Wilmington. So if you wanted to go to college, you left Wilmington. That hurt us. That hurt our community. That hurt our growth. Somebody asked me, why didn't I think the sit-ins got kicked off in Wilmington? And if I think about that for a long time, I think it was that. It's all the blacks who wanted to go to college all left. We could not go University of North Carolina in Wilmington. So all of us left before we go to college. You know, I get around some places and people say, well, how did you get this idea of this sit-in? Did you read a book about the people in Oklahoma? Or did somebody else put this in your head? Like, somebody has to teach me or put something in my head, take care of something that's an ox on my neck. Here in Wilmington, we started addressing those issues while I was in high school. How many of you remember, other than Billy Ann, the Pepsi boycott? There was a Pepsi boycott here in Wilmington. It was also an effort to desegregate the libraries. Even though it's a meager effort, every little bit helps, and everybody helps and contributes in his own way. So I left this community going to A&T with those thoughts in mind, that I am a leader. I don't need anybody from Washington. I don't need anybody from New York to lead me. I am a leader. I will provide leadership. And I went to Greensboro with those ideas. I went to Greensboro with strong commitments. Let's talk about this thing we were saying about sit-ins. You know what a sit-in is? This sit-in kind of started on February the 1st and was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. 3 of my buddies and I decided to go sit down at a lunch counter and order coffee, and we bought some toothpaste and things at some counters right around the lunch counter. And we sat down and went to the waitress and said, ma'am, can I have some coffee? And she says, oh my Lord. You boys are going to get in trouble. Why don't you leave now? No, ma'am, we're not going to leave. She said, well, we can't serve you. She said, well, you just served us at those other counters right over there. What do you mean you can't serve us? Well, we're not going to serve you. And we said, we are not going to leave. And so you should have seen things happening. The manager of the store came out. He says, I want you out of here right now. And get up and go. I'm going to call the cops. That would scare most people away. But we stayed. And the cops came. And the cops are not necessarily your enemies. But this cop who came had some thoughts in mind. He thought he might encourage us to leave, so he was walking behind us with his big stick, you know, just going. What do you think he had in mind? We didn't leave. We sat there. And people were walking by and looking. What the heck is this? Are they crazy? Little white lady. guess. Walked up to my buddy, Frank McCain, tapped him on the shoulder, said, I'm disappointed. And Frank looked in amazement. Ma'am? She said, I'm disappointed. At what? He said, I'm disappointed because it took you so long to do what you're doing now. Sitting there and do what you need to do. And at that moment, that was extreme encouragement.
Yes. Yes. So
we left that store that day, and we came back the next day, and instead of 4 of us, there were 15. And we sat down in the lunch counters, and they couldn't quite figure out what to do. So the news media was there. What they did is they said, well, we're going to close the lunch counter. And they just shut the lunch counter down. You couldn't get anything. You couldn't get a hamburger, coffee, nothing. And then the next day we came back. We started out with 4, and then it was 15. The next day there was 300. And then pretty soon, another town heard about what was going on and saw this thing in the paper. Said, my goodness. So Winston-Salem, bang, next day. And lo and behold, before you know it, Norfolk, Virginia, Orangeburg, South Carolina, and guess what? Wilmington, North Carolina. This thing started out on a roll, you know? Like, we went from 300 up to 2,000 at one time. I remember. Can you imagine 2,000 people descending on one store? It took us 6 months to get this lunch counter integrated. And we went to jail. And that's what they thought. They said, well, if we can't scare them, we'll put their butts in jail. That'll stop them. Because if you went to jail, you didn't know how long you were going to go. Really, I didn't go to A&T up there to go to jail. I went there to get an education. So I had some thoughts in my mind, you know. Do I want to do this? And I said, yeah, I want to do this. And not only did I do it, but thousands of other people said, we'll do it. So when they put us in jail, it wasn't 4, it wasn't 100, it was 800. Commissioner Barfield, you can understand scarce resources. Your prison population in one day increases by 800 people. And your resources are strained. And when they say, well, you can leave, and we say, well, we don't want to leave. You can imagine some of the thoughts that went through the minds of our institutions. And it was all spontaneous, you know. They couldn't figure this thing out. They couldn't figure out what we were going to do next because we didn't know. The sit-in phenomenon was very, very interesting. You know who pulled it off? What do you think about this? Who's 10 years old here? Yeah? Who's 15? 15? 17? Aha. This whole thing was kicked off by 4 kids who were 17 years old. That spread to all these cities throughout the South. That brought about was the impetus of such major, major change. That produced such great national leaders, the Jesse Jacksons, the John Lewis's down in Atlanta, Julian Bonds. All these folks grew out of this movement. Kids have power. Kids can change things. Kids are our future. We look to